Mark, Bill Rice, and I wrote together for, actually it was 19 years. And we were so lucky. I mean, we went for about 5 years without ever being out of the singles charts in Billboard, just consistently. And then we became the most awarded songwriting team in the history of ASCAP. I don't know, we got about 70 ASCAP awards hanging on the wall. And Bill was responsible for the music, and I did basically the lyrics. And those days, they would call the publisher and say, "What's the boys written today?" I wish it was that way today. I'd buy a bank. We wrote 7 of the first 9 hits for Paycheck. And actually had the B-side of "Don't Take Her, She's All I Got." I sometimes do that at writers' rounds just to say, everybody knows the other side, let me sing you the side that we got paid on, and so forth, kind of that way. Yeah, we actually had some pop cuts too. Sonny and Cher did our stuff, Sammy Davis Jr., Robert Goulet. I'm probably one of the few writers, Bill and I, that Louis Armstrong cut one of our songs. He cut the Easy Parts Over that Charlie Pride had a hit with. That was our first award winner, was Charlie Pride with Easy Parts Over. When I first started making records, I signed with Don Roby out of Houston, Texas, and Don had Duke, Backbeat, and Peacock. And Duke Records in 1952 had Johnny Ace, who was the R&B Artist of the Year. He had a big record called Pledging My Love, The Clock. Anyway, when I signed, I didn't know that I was the only white guy on the label. So we had a lot of fun. So I get to Nashville. They sent me on a promotion tour with radio and television, and we had to lip sync in those days because the sound wasn't right to actually sing on television. So I get to Nashville, and John R. Richburg and Hall Salin were working at WLAC, 50,000 watts going everywhere, and it's an R&B station. So I'd listened to those guys, and I thought, okay, black jocks, they're great. I get here, and they send a guard down to bring me up to the studio, and here's Hall Salin, and he looks at me and says, "You're Jerry Foster?" And I said, "You're Hall Salin? Where's John R.?" He said, "He's over putting records away. Here's 3 surprised white guys." It was funny, but I stayed with that label. I found a million seller that they were getting ready to throw it in a trash can, and I said, "That's a hit." He said, "Do you think that's it?" Well, I was talking to Don Roby, and I said, "Yeah," and it was Joe Hinton with a record called Ladder of Prayer, and after that, I could call Roby and say, "Send me $100. I'm stranded. Whatever you want, Jerry, send it to you." So anyway, I stayed with him till the contract ran out, and he offered me a new contract, and I said, "Don, I don't think that this is going to work too well. We've tried 3 years and, cut some good records." I came to town in 1961 to record, and I had gotten a producer fired that had cut the second record for me because he put his name on a song I wrote, and he didn't write it. And so I told Don Roby about it, and he said, "Well, you don't have to worry about that." So he said, "When you find a producer you like, call me." And Jerry Crutchfield, I was working radio with him at Benton, Kentucky, at WCBL. He picked up my record and he said, "Is this you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "When are you going to cut again?" And I said, "You want to produce me?" Because he'd been producing Eddie Arnold. And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Can I use your phone?" And I called Texas and I said, "I think I've found my producer." And so I put Crutchfield on the phone with Roby. And all I heard Crutchfield say is, "Okay, fine, yes." And he hung up and I said, "What did he say?" And he said, "Pick any studio you want, send us the budget, we'll approve it. And whatever Jerry wants to cut, let him cut it." The reason I'm bringing this story up is the band that Jerry hired. We cut at the Quonset Hut at CBS, okay? The band on guitars was Grady Martin and Hank Garland, 2 legends. Piano was Floyd Kramer. This was right before he hit with Last Date. Okay, yeah. So, and I have pictures of that. The drummer was Buddy Harmon. The bass player, because he needed the money, was Buddy Killen, who later became a multi-millionaire when he sold Tree. And the tic-tac bass player was Harold Bradley, who played tic-tac on every record in the world, I guess, and we had all 6 Anita Kerr singers. That was a heck of a session, man. You were asking me about cars before, and I told you, when I started, I was rockabilly. if I was doing country, I still couldn't stand still. And I didn't know who Elvis was. I was in the Marine Corps in South Carolina. The first record I heard by Elvis was I Forgot to Remember, I think, and the other side was Mystery Train. And I spent quarter after quarter after quarter teaching the band Scotty Moore's licks so we could play that, because it just knocked me out, you know. And I was doing Baby Let's Play House, all those things. Well, anyway, what I started to tell you was in the late 60s and early 70s, 18 of us in the music business. I mean, we had producers, directors, writers, publishers, and artists all went together, 18 of us, and bought a race car. And we painted it orange and white and called it the Orange Blossom Special. James Ham drove for us. And every Saturday night, just about at the old Nashville racetrack, we'd win the pole, and Darrell Walter was put us in the wall before the race was over, so we lost the race. But we got tires for winning the pole. Then we get down to Daytona. I liked our froze. I thought, Florida's nice and warm. I'm going on vacation. I didn't realize Daytona is not Miami, okay? And I'm sitting there freezing to death in a t-shirt, a pair of white jeans, everybody else wearing overcoats. And we were running 5th in the 500 and blew an engine. And I heard it go, psh, and I saw the smoke. And I thought, time to catch a plane back to Nashville. We ran in a couple of seasons. I think we ran for maybe 4 or 5 years. Okay. Yeah, we had a really good pit crew, and that car would look like it'd been through a junkyard when we finished the race, and by the next Saturday, it looks like a brand new car again. I mean, I don't know how they rejuvenated it like they did, but boy, they did. It was sharp. When I was recording for Metro Media, I did something I always wanted to do. I put Elvis's original band, the surviving members, back together, Scotty, DJ, and the Jordanaires as they were configured in 1958. And I embellished it with a keyboard player and an extra rhythm guitar. And on I Forgot to Remember, I actually used Terry McMillan, the late Terry McMillan, on harmonica. He was one of the best in the city. He did a lot of session work. Anyway, Metro Media wound up going out of business, and I wound up owning the masters. And I leased one of the songs that Elvis never recorded. I asked Scotty. Scotty Moore produced this thing, by the way. He and Tommy also produced the first 4 sides, and after that, it was Scotty. And I asked Scotty, I said, what song was it that Elvis always wanted to record but never got a chance to do it? And he said, Jerry always wanted to cut Don't Let It Go. And I said, I know that song. Let's do it, and you play guitar like you did in '56. And he said, okay. And I leased that thing to a company out of London, and they leased it to a major. And the BBC jumped all over that record, and it went to #1 over there. So I got to do a tour, and I mean, this is a tour that people dream about being on. Roy Orbison, Jerry Lee Lewis, Don Williams, Chris Christopherson, Marty Robbins, Jimmy C. Newman, Jeannie C. Riley, Boxcar Willie, and me. Not a bad lineup. We did 6 shows in 5 countries in 9 days. We did 2 in Germany, 1 in Frankfurt and 1 in Berlin. And all the auditoriums were 12,000 seaters, and they were all packed. You know, it was the darndest thing I ever saw. It's the first time I ever saw cigarette lighters for applause. And I was on stage, and I thought they were trying to burn a building down, you know? And I see all these lighters, and I thought, fire, fire, you know? But Chris and I had been friends since he tended bar, and he was the first guy to congratulate me. When we got our first cut was Charlie Pride with The Day the World Stood Still. And Chris came over and he said, well, Jerry, you finally kicked your way out of this stuff. And I said, well, thank you, Chris. You're still tending bar. And we've been friends ever since, and I just love him to death, man. To me, there is a talented songwriter. You know what? Chris is Chris. And he sings them like he wrote them. And I went to see him when he did a thing. They were showing a number of us the plans for the new theater at the Country Music Hall of Fame. And Chris was making a little presentation thing too and inviting everybody in. And I wasn't sure he'd remember me because I hadn't seen him in a long time, I guess since that tour. And he like to broke my back hugging me when he saw me. And we started talking old times and stuff. And I got so tickled at him because when the show started, Chris comes out and he looks up, and there's only about 60 of us. This was an invitation only. He said, well, I kind of thought I'd draw a bigger crowd than this. He's a delight to work with. Well, I don't know when I got the bug. I got my first television show when I was 20 years old and I was still in the Marine Corps, and I think I fell in love with cameras, and I learned a little trick. The first movie I did was WW and the Dixie Dance Kings, okay? And so the director set this big camera up. We did a scene at Tootsie's. And he said, okay, everybody see this? He points to the lens. Yeah, he said, look right here. I want everybody to look right here. So we all looked, and he said, now don't ever look there again. So we kind of learned a little bit about camera technique. And when I was doing television, it was a red light here, a red light there, and red light. And I said, I ain't worried about the red lights. They can shoot me. I'm not worried about where that camera is, because there was 3 of them. And I'm trying to sing a song and concentrate on what I'm doing, and it's kind of hard to do that and try to figure out which camera's on you, you know. So, but I've had a love affair with acting for a long time. There's a movie that we did in the can, and I thought I was just doing a scene. And I got over and I had probably 50 pages of dialogue. I mean, and it was green corn. It was so much fun to shoot that movie. We shot it over in the Smokies. And I'm playing a guy that's he's not playing with a full deck most of the time. And I've been in prison, and I get to, instead of dying like I did in Junkyard Dog, I get to kill about 3 guys. That was fun. But I love acting. The whole business, music and acting, I'm not too crazy about the stage, because that's sheer terror for me. I've done it before, but I like film where they can say, cut, and just do it again. Well, there's no place to cut when you're standing in front of a whole audience on the stage. I never blew a line, but boy, I tell you what, I thought about it. Whew, what if I do that? I used to go to sleep driving. The band wouldn't drive with me driving. The band didn't want to ride with me. I'd go to sleep talking to you. And if somebody grabbed the wheel, Jerry's asleep. So finally they got to saying, Jerry, you ride shotgun. One of us is driving the car. So I wound up buying a DC-3 airliner from the president of Pennzoil, and that's how I carried the last band I had around. It was a whole lot easier. I could actually sleep.
Yeah, some great stuff.
I had a lot of fun visiting with you, Mark.
It's been great.
Thank you.